This is our real story." The silence shattered in an instant. A boot struck her head with brutal force, the crack echoing across the training yard. She collapsed, dust rising around her, her hands trembling as pain seared through her skull. Dozens of recruits froze, their eyes wide, but not a single one dared to intervene. The man who hit her wasn't another trainee, it was their commanding officer. His face twisted with disdain, his voice dripping with venom. "You don't belong here." The world seemed to tilt around her. Blood throbbed in her temple, the ground spinning, yet somewhere deep inside, anger burned hotter than the pain. She looked up at him, defiant, refusing to break. And in that gaze, something shifted, not in her, but in him. For the first time, he flinched. He didn't know it yet. But justice was already on its way. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. She pressed her palms into the dirt, dizzy, struggling to rise. The sun beat down on the parade ground, its heat merciless. But colder still were the stares of her fellow soldiers, some pitying, some terrified. None of them spoke. Fear hung in the air like smoke. She knew if she showed weakness now, they'd see her as broken. But inside, her spirit roared against the injustice. The officer sneered, muttering that she had no place in his unit. His words slithered like poison, meant to shrink her down. Yet even through the haze of pain, she caught his eyes, and in that instant, he faltered. Because her gaze carried something he did not expect, defiance. Whispers began to ripple at the edges of the formation. A handful of recruits looked toward the gates, as if sensing something was coming. Dust rose on the road, faint at first, then thicker, clouding the horizon. The sound followed, engines rumbling, steady, unstoppable. 3 black vehicles rolled into the compound. The gates clanged shut behind them. Every recruit stood stiff as statues. The officer's face drained of color as doors opened, and out stepped 3 generals, their uniforms crisp, their eyes sharp as blades. She could feel the energy shift in the air. Authority, real authority, had arrived. The tallest general's voice carried like thunder. Who struck her? No one answered. The officer opened his mouth, but the words died in his throat. The silence stretched, unbearable. Then, one of the recruits, trembling but brave, pointed. The truth was laid bare. The generals' faces hardened, carved in stone. The officer tried to defend himself, his excuses spilling like broken glass, sharp but worthless. He spoke of discipline, of toughness, of tradition. But the generals listened with cold, unblinking eyes. And when he was finished, the tallest of them stepped forward. His words were not loud, but they shook the ground all the same. This unit is shut down. Effective immediately. Gasps swept through the ranks. Some cheered under their breath, others wept quietly. The abusive officer collapsed into himself, stripped not only of command but of dignity. And in the center of it all, she stood still unsteady, but unbroken. In that moment, justice had walked through the gates in polished boots and solemn silence. Yet the victory wasn't hers alone. It belonged to every voice that had been stifled, every spirit that had been bruised by fear. But she wrestled with the question, was it right to feel triumph in another man's ruin? Or was this simply balance, a scale that had finally, painfully, tilted toward fairness? The general met her eyes then, offering a nod, small, but powerful. It was as if he spoke without words. You endured. And because of that, change has come. Later, when the dust settled and the vehicles disappeared beyond the horizon, the recruits gathered around her. Hands reached out, lifting her gently, supporting her steps. For the first time, she didn't feel alone. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits. And it finds its way back. And though the memory of that kick would never fully leave her, neither would the sound of engines rolling in, carrying justice closer than anyone had dared to hope. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, because stories like these remind us that even in the darkest moments, light still finds a way.